Tony D and Little Joan with your half-assed Hollywoke hot take on Christmas. Just thought I'd drop in and do a short video. Joan's in her little cute little dress still. I gotta take it off her. I think she's overheating. It's a little too hot. Joan, you okay? She's got this new bed. She likes to stretch out and put her head on the sides. Anyhow, just a few odds and ends before we call it a Christmas. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you're watching my videos this late at night. I mean, after all the gifts are open, I guess no one's got anything to do. I don't. We did our usual stuff at Christmas. Me and my family like to play games. So I tried out a new game. It was a time travel game, which, I love that. That was fun. I lost 3 straight games. But other than that, it was fun. Ate a ton of food. Ate prime rib. And got a little leftover piece that my nephew didn't finish. I saved for Little Joan. So Little Joan's going to have some prime rib tomorrow. Isn't that going to be good, Joan? Oh, boy. So anyway, the Doctor Who, I don't know, season 1 official trailer dropped. And I thought I'd go over it. But it's so bad, it's not even worth going over by itself. That's how awful it is. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's really degraded Doctor Who, is how I would classify it. Now, Nakati Gatwa, he's actually not too bad in it, but he's just not the Doctor, is the problem. He's doing some other kind of... You know what it is? It's like he goes back in time to meet the Beatles. It's actually kind of like this. Imagine, if you would, being in high school, as some of you might even still be, and think of the nerdiest things that the nerdiest kids are doing in the school, right? Now imagine that the popular kids decided, ooh, we're going to do that. And how much it would ruin that thing, whatever it was, right? Now, when I was in school, this was you had to be like a king nerd to be in a Doctor Who. Like, you had to be hardcore. You couldn't just be a nerd of the, weekend nerd. You had to be like full-time nerd to be in the Doctor Who. Right? That was like advanced nerddom. So that's the way Doctor Who used to be. Because keep in mind, when I grew up, the BBC stuff was we got it very late, We didn't have the internet, so we would get like your third-rate reruns downstream. But the show had been on forever, so it lived in reruns. But now the popular kids... who think they're so cool have taken over Doctor Who. And they've turned him into a fashion model. A gay fashion model. He still sort of acts like Doctor Who, but a Doctor Who if, again, the most popular kids ran the show. So what are the popular kids like? Well, they love gays. They love gay people. Oh my God, they love the gays. So yes, they made him gay. They made him good looking. You weren't going to get a fat doctor. These people are all about the fat. Oh, fat, don't be fat phobic. Until they cast someone, and then they'll be handsome as F. If you're not bangable, you're not getting cast by the leftists, I'll tell you right now. And then they've descended into, instead of doing science fiction, which this show used to be about. First off, here's a rave party, which couldn't be more gay. But in this sequence, he meets his companion, who's grabbed onto a ladder because someone has kidnapped a baby, and the ladder's just floating in the sky. Apparently, nobody else sees it, and then they end up in the ship. Like an old-timey flying ship that's full of goblins. Yeah, goblins. And he actually calls them goblins. Like, In the old days in Doctor Who, he would call them by some crazy alien race name, and then reveal that, like, yes, humans thought they were goblins, but they were really these aliens who do these things. But no, he calls them goblins. And then it gets worse. Because although it doesn't show it in this trailer, there's a second trailer I also saw a clip from. It turns into a musical. Literally a musical number where they start singing. I I just can't even watch that or even talk about this anymore. It makes me kind of want to puke. But this is what popular kids, if they took over your nerd things, would do to it. They would stick in all the things they like, regardless of the fact that this was a science fiction show. And it was a hard science fiction show. Meaning that they would, first off, they would have to explain why everything was shot on the BBC sets and in like parking lots in England back in the day. But they had explanations, but the actual science was always very hard. As the years progressed, they got further and further away from that. Why? Because they were broadening the audience to some extent. And they wanted to appeal to more people. Because as long as it was niche, it had topped out where it was. Even though everybody watched it, it still was a limited audience. So, in an attempt to broaden it to everybody, they had musical, gay people, model, everything you could think of. Celebrities, guest will be the next. I mean, throwing the Beatles in there is par for the course. The next thing will be big name celebrities on Doctor Who. That will be the last ditch attempt. And David Tennant was an attempt at that. David Tennant's semi-big celebrity in the BBC or UK world. I mean, he's a pretty big actor. I mean, he was already popular on the show. So they will pull out all the stops to prop this up. And this is really, I think, Disney's influence. They're pushing the Disney way of doing things. I think, combining that with the UK way of doing things. But Disney, I think, pushed this guy onto the show. Or picked him. And again, he's not a bad actor. He's not, you watch him and he's got good energy. He's just not the Doctor. He's way too well dressed. I don't know what this is all about. It's a Victorian English scene. He smiles way too much. And he's not goofy. Like he's goofy like popular kids are goofy, right? Not goofy enough to actually be self-deprecating, but goofy like just goofy enough to say, oh, he's a silly guy. Oh, he's still handsome. Like he's not really that silly. He's sort of like playing at being silly. Although this suit is just, I don't get that suit at all. I don't get that suit at all. And I assume there'll be a gay romance at some point. There's going to be a lot of stuff in this show that has no business being there. The design, it's way too dynamic. This show was very, I shouldn't say dry, but it wasn't about all this flash. It just wasn't. Adding all this flash actually takes away from this show. Because the interesting thing about the show, like when Tom Baker, which is my favorite Doctor, was on the show, he was just interesting to watch. Because he had to, really bring a performance in order to sell this damn thing. Because there wasn't anything else to sell. The special effects were crap. There were people in alien costumes all around him. So they had to write something cool and interesting. And you got into it. This is so much flash and noise. There's just nothing here. It's so empty. It's such an empty... It's like, hey, we're going to sell you an action figure, and the box is amazing, and then you open it, and it's just another action figure. Not even. It's actually a bad action figure. So, They should not have cast this role the way they did. And in fact, the neat thing about the various doctors that they did cast is they kind of all looked like each other to a certain degree. Now, there was a couple there was that second one didn't, although he sort of did. And then when they got to the curly haired guys, who were very popular, they stuck with curly hair for a little while. Like everybody had curly hair. Then they got away from that. And I don't know why exactly, but, Fox took a run at it. It was a disaster. That's when it really started to go downhill. The moment Fox touched it, it really started to go downhill. Even the stuff that Russell T Davies did wasn't as great. I thought the actors were good, but again, too flashy. Should have, like, I didn't mind that there would be new effects, but they should have kept the charm. And the way to keep that charm would have been to keep it in the countryside, in small sets that weren't too flashy at all. So, this show's dead. Anyhow, moving on. The numbers, Aquaman The Lost Kingdom, it looks like it did 40 million in the States. 80 million overseas, 30 million of that was from China, for a total of $120 million weekend. Now, doing the math on that, I mean, next weekend it might feel like it has a bit of legs because it's not going to drop off as much if you count like New Year's. But what are you talking? Maybe you're lucky it does 25 mil in the States, maybe another 40 mil overseas. So you're looking at 185. I mean, it'll crack 200 million, I think. I think 200 million is not unreasonable for this movie, but they spent way more than that, I think, if you add in the advertising. Let's see if they have. I wonder if they have the budget. Production budget, 205. Yeah, so that's not good. That's probably means, again, with the formula, they need to make 400 million just to break even. This movie, I don't think it's going to make 400 million. I think it might do like 250 to 270, something like that. So that's not good. That is not money, in my view. So, ouch. Wonka did okay for its second week. The rest of the movies are just sort of there. They're making something. I don't know what they cost. I mean, Iron Claw, this is a live-action wrestling movie. But it now this says it only has a production budget of $15.9 million. So, like a movie like this, if it makes 30 mil, that's break even, but it's only made 4 million its first week, and it's got nowhere to go but down. So, I think it might break even for its production budget. It's hard to rate, though, the advertising. I think when people say 2 times the advertising budget, I think that is probably true on the Marvel movies, but I don't think that's true on all the movies. I don't think it's true for a movie like Iron Claw. I just don't. I mean, the movie cost $15 million to make. I don't, and that's probably slightly exaggerated for tax purposes. I don't think they spent $15 million advertising it. I think they spent like $5 million maybe. And again, it's combined with other movies. A24 makes a lot of movies. So, but yeah, the box office, don't look good. 92 million. Yesterday, the estimate was 93, I think. So, eek. Actually didn't live up to that. But Monday, I mean, you add Monday into this, maybe it's a little better. But they're saying Monday or Sunday would be another 13 mil for Aquaman. So maybe it's like 40.1 million, but it's not good, man. Not good. Another thing that dropped, X-Men fans are livid as Marvel Comics editor Tom Brevoort confirms that coming reboot will be filled with politics. The message is the premise. Oh boy. from Fandom Pulse. That is terrible news. So that means you could pretty much count out most of the X-Men. I mean, look, Marvel Comics, in my view, been in a toilet for a long while, like good 10 years. And longer, really. I mean, look, the stuff that was coming out 10 years ago weren't all that good. I mean, it's better compared to the stuff that's coming out now. Oh, yeah, it's worlds better, but it wasn't great. You know, stuff came out in the 90s wasn't even that great. But once in a while, something cool would happen, but Marvel's heyday was during the 80s with Claremont. After that, it's kind of all downhill. So, you know, I complained about this stuff in the 90s. Now, not about the woke stuff. The woke stuff was just, I mean, like Claremont, he wasn't woke, but he was very progressive. But he was a good writer, and he could write good stuff. The guys today can't, oh my God, they can't write anything. I've never seen anything like it. The comics that come out now, they're so far gone from actual stories, I don't even know what they are anymore. It's just like, is anybody doing their job at Marvel? Is there any editor worth a damn that says, this really isn't a story? Why don't you write a story? Part of the problem is the way Marvel, the Marvel way is to write an outline, send it to the artist, and then write the word balloons afterwards, which I kind of understand, but I don't think it's a good process. Right? Like, what I think it should happen, I think the writer should write a full script, the artist should draw it, and then it should go back to the writer to make any adjustments. Or the editor should work with the writer to make those adjustments. Because sometimes there is an adjustment, right? Like sometimes I put too much words in a panel and it's drawn and I get it back and I was like, oh, this balloon will never fit, so I edit. But you know, these people just, they don't know how to write a story. It's all it comes down to. They just don't know how to write. I don't think there's anybody left at Marvel doing, I mean, at least if they had Mark Waid, they'd have somebody. Is he writing anything now? I don't know. They're hiring people based on the message. I mean, it's weird. They say the message is the premise. That's crazy. The message. So yeah, I would sell your Marvel comics if I were you. I don't think that price has anywhere but to go but now down at this point. These people are determined to burn down the entire, house of Marvel. The only thing that might save it is the cancellation of Marvel. Because here's what could happen. Disney just decides, we got to cut divisions here. Like, finally, they get to the point where, like, well, we got to stop wasting money. And they close down the MCU, or they cut way back. And they look over to the comics division, and they go, they either cut it to the bare bones and say, look, you can do 5 comics a month. Pick the 5 you want to do. The 5 that sell. So it'd be X-Men, Spider-Man, probably a Spider-Man team-up. What else? Avengers. And maybe, like, Thor and Iron Man, or like a Defenders, or, something. Like, it would be bare bones Marvel. Or X-Men. X-Men would be. So it'd be X-Men, Spider-Man, Avengers, maybe Hulk, Iron Man, or some sort of team-up book. And that's it. 5 titles, or let's see, they want to put 5 titles, because they can put 1 out a month. And then it would probably help the sales, because it would consolidate the fan base somewhat. But they wouldn't even pick those. I bet one of the ones the Marvel guys would want to pick is like Captain Marvel or something that wouldn't sell at all. So if they continue to listen to the Marvel guys, and they seem to keep doing that, the titles might be X-Men, Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, and like another, Avengers starring all the girl characters. Something that'll match the movie. But what might really save it is if Disney decides just to outsource all the product. Like if they say we'll close down the comics division, we're going to outsource it. You know, then it could be like Image outsourcing Spider-Man. First off, they'd pick, the big ones. It'd probably be Todd McFarlane again. I imagine he would be top of the list, right? Spider-Man's up for grabs. Todd rolls in and says, "Well, I'll produce the Spider-Man comic and a few others." And Todd would draw Spider-Man, and maybe a couple of the other guys from Image would come back to do various things that they always wanted to do on those comics. And they would cut some sort of deal with Marvel or Disney or whatever, and they just do the comics, and they wouldn't even care about them. And then the MCU would slowly shut down because they'd be off they do like another 2 or 3 disaster movies and then finally call it quits, and that's where the comics will end up. The superheroes will end up in places like Image, what is it, Boom Studios? I was going to say Bang Studios, Boom Studios, stuff like places like that. And then, you won't see them as often, but they'll be better, right? And maybe they would do it in such a way that McFarlane could save the comic industry. He's the only one that has the money that I think. Unless some big company came along to make comics, but DC could be the same thing. It may happen to DC first. Same thing. McFarlane says, "Oh, I'll publish Spider-Man. I'll publish all your DC comics," and he cuts some sort of big deal with them. And then he licensed them, but he also pays them a fee. And then, because he's paying all that money, there won't be comics like there are now. A bunch of stupid comics that don't make any money. They won't be able to make comics that don't make money. They will have to make them awesome, or at least stick to the titles that sell. And when it cuts back, right, when the Marvel and the DC universe are down to like 5 to 10 of the best titles, then you don't get crap like the Newsboy Legion or, these secondary characters that nobody wants, because they don't have enough of an audience. You're going to get Batman, Superman, the Justice League, and maybe Wonder Woman, and like one other. And that's it. Maybe Batman, Superman team up. Stuff like that. And there'll be big stories with the main characters again, which is what people want. It's what fans want. And there won't be any dross. There won't be all these specials and tie-ins. They won't be able to do them. There just won't be an audience for it. And they'll finally cut down to what it's supposed to be. The next phase, of course, would be after they take this over. Initially it would be like all the big guys would come in to launch it. But then the regular guys would have to come in at some point. Like the regular artists and the regular writers who are just going to write the next, 2 to 5 years of comics. And they're just going to be cranking them out. So that's when you get guys like Chris Claremont. That's who Chris Claremont was. He was just the guy who wrote the X-Men forever. He had written it for almost 20 years. And he'd done these huge character arcs, and he'd really put his mark on it. But more than that, he was good at the characters, and he could, after 2 or 3 years of doing it, you could see how he would set things up in one issue, and then it would pay off, a few issues down the road. And everybody bought, every single month, X-Men. And because there wasn't that many titles, You weren't overloaded with stories that didn't mean anything. There was a continuity that they stuck to. And so if you get down to 5 titles, you can finally get back to a continuity that makes sense. Because there's only 5 titles to keep track of, or 10 or whatever. Who the hell could keep track of the continuity now, even if you wanted to? So maybe they would get back to that. That's what I would do. And then comics would be decent again, depending on who was writing them. Yeah, so there's that. And then finally, the Joker sequel. They're teasing some stills, so this is one of the stills. I'm not sure what that's from. Here's a still of Joaquin Phoenix locked up, I guess, in probably Arkham. And here they are, Lady Gaga and Joaquin. You know, I don't know. I don't know about her as Harley Quinn. I mean, maybe if they do the Harley Quinn origin, you know, where she's his psychiatrist and she is trying to rehabilitate him and then falls in love with him and goes crazy. That could be good if they go down that path. The musical numbers, I don't know about that. Because if the song isn't great, I just immediately start, my eyes kind of roll back and go, oh, I got to listen to this now? Can I, you know, I was into the story and now I got to hear this stupid song. I mean, Lady Gaga, she's got a lot of hits. I like a couple of her songs. I could listen to them. I prefer Weird Al Yankovic's parody of one, but other than that, I mean, she could write a decent song, but I think you know where these, you know, musical numbers tend to go. Like, there'll be one cool, upbeat, maybe rocky song, and it'll be cool. You know, it's kind of like a 70s vibe. It'll be cool. And there'll be a funny song, and that'll be interesting. But by the end of the movie, there'll be a love song. That'll be boring. And then there'll be some epic number at the end, and it'll be like, you know, I wanted to see a fight or a big riot like the end of the first movie, and instead I got this musical number, and then the movie ends, and you're just kind of like, oh, it's kind of not what I wanted to see. I kind of wanted to see how the movie ended, not how the song ended. You know what I mean? That's the problem with musicals and me. It's like, you know, I'm following the story. Oh, now we're into a song. Now I'm out of it. You know. But we'll see. Maybe he'll pull a trick like he did in the first movie, and the songs are, you know, in their head, and it's part of their madness, and they weren't real, they were just in their heads, and then we find out what really happened up to that point, and they're both insane, and they're both trapped in, I don't know, Arkham, I guess, or maybe they both die, I don't know. So Brendan Gleeson's in it? Oh, that's weird. The Joker sequel is part of DC Elseworlds and is not part of the universe that Peter Safran and James Gunn are building, which is a shame. Because I would have liked to have seen Joaquin Phoenix and Batman, but again, this is part of the degradation of the culture and the characters. They're just, you know. Now, Todd Phillips is very skilled. I like him. I think he does good work. But, you know, I want to see the Joker fight Batman. Sorry. I still want to see Joaquin Phoenix fight Batman. But we're never going to get to see that. Not the way he's doing it. I doubt it. Maybe they will pressure him. Because keep in mind, even though they did have a cut scene from The Batman with Robert Pattinson and the Joker. I think they cut that scene completely, right? Yeah, I think they cut that scene out. So, even though they used that guy from the Banshees of Inisherin, who's very good, I didn't even recognize him as the Joker. Um, they could, the studio could force it, right? You know, Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips get together and they're just like, no, 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 no. And then the studio just keeps going, okay, more money, more money, more money. I don't think so. I don't think we're in that stage of Warner Brothers. I think Warner Brothers will be lucky to not have to be sold off from the sound of it, but depends on who you listen to. People in the business world are not saying good things about Zaslav's strategy. Some of the people in Variety aren't saying good things, I think. However, I don't think those two groups of people are rooting for Zaslav, because Zaslav, although I don't think he's gotten completely away from ESG, he's gotten away a little, so they may sense that he's not totally on board with their plan and kind of keep punishing him until he is. And then, there's Ethan Van Sciver who says, no, he has a plan, which I'd like to believe, but I just don't see it yet. I don't see how he can refinance this unless he gets more hits. On top of the fact, Barbie was not something he greenlit. The guy before him greenlit, and that made all their money, kind of saved them. And very common in the world of studios, if your predecessor greenlights a movie, you cancel it for that very reason, because now he does look bad because it's his predecessor who greenlit a big hit, not him. However, it may not matter. I don't know. Things sound very desperate. So maybe he just needs to sell off a few more divisions of things to right the ship. I don't know. They seem to have a lot of debt. But then again, all these studios have tons of debt. It's only Disney that seems to have bottomless pockets so far. So maybe he could raise the money somehow. And but the end result may be that he'll raise some of it, and then lots of cuts will happen, and the comic division could definitely be one of those things. And they're definitely, I think, going to get away from these big budget movies. But that may be a good thing too. Go back to doing, Iron Claw, $15.9 million, that's a perfectly reasonable budget to make a decent movie. Perfectly reasonable. You don't have to spend $100 million. You don't have to. You can. It's easy to spend $100 million. Just ask James Cameron. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D, and my various odds and ends here on Hollywoke Hot Take. I'll be back this week with more videos. I'm just doing the two tonight. I did a news blast. And Joan and I are going to relax. Maybe I'll do some writing. It was a good Christmas. I hope you had a good Christmas. New Year's Eve is coming up. I've got one last event before the year is through, and that is at Level Up Entertainment at Mays Landing at the Hamilton Mall. So come to that. Also, I was in the Hamilton Gazette for, I think I have actually a picture of it. I'll show it to you. My cousin sent it to me. Shout out to my cuz. See if I can find it. Where the heck is it? Oh, gosh. I guess it's under messages? I don't know how to work this thing. Friggin' Instagram. Yeah, here it is. Can I make this bigger? Oh, God, that's as big as I can make it? Well, that's me, if you can see it. Author Tony DiGerolamo to speak at January 4 at free Hamilton Society Historical Program. Is that what that stands for? It's the Hamilton Historical Society. So it should be HHS, I think. But maybe it's the Historical Society of Hamilton. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah, I wish I could read it to you. It looked like I could read it on my phone, but on here it's so tiny. Thought it would blow up if I clicked it. All right. That's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. We'll see you tomorrow.